Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. This is one of 5 parts of a series that I did on Facebook about mineral balancing for your human design type. So in this 5-part series, I'm diving into each of the human design types, what common chronic symptoms show up per your not self theme for each type, and how really staying in that not self theme affects us physically. So what organs and glands it's really affecting when we're stuck in that not self theme. And then how to use mineral balancing to address all of that, specifically mineral balancing. I'll talk a little bit about vitamins. I'll probably mention some gut health stuff in there, but the main focus is about mineral balancing. And so feel free to skip over this episode if this is not your type, unless you just want to learn about all the types, and that's cool too. Or if you have a friend or family member, but feel free to skip to your type. All of these are pretty bite-sized, so pretty short trainings, but at least gives you an idea of how your not self-theme shows up physically in the body and how you can use minerals to help address the possible imbalances. Of course, like I always say, the common chronic symptoms that I talk about for each type, this is not an extensive list. This is not limited to that. There are obviously other issues that can happen in the body, but these are the most common, again, just based on how the specific not self-theme affects the body and kind of just where the energy is flowing per the human design type. So let's jump in, enjoy, and let's get into this 5-part series. Hello, friends. I'm back for part 3. I've been doing a series here on Facebook and Instagram all about mineral balancing for human design types. And today we're moving on to the 3rd type that is in the series, and that is manifesting generators. So far I've talked about manifestors, I've talked about generators, and I will say that manifestors, manifesting generators is going to be a little bit similar to generators just because there's a lot of similarities between the types. So there is going to be a lot of crossover. There's a little bit of nuance there to talk about too. So within each of these types that I've been talking about, we're talking about mineral balancing, I'm speaking at it in terms of what the most common chronic symptoms that happen for each of these types, dependent on what arises from the not self theme, right? What arises in the body from being in the not self theme chronically, right? In a constant state. So for Manny Gen's not self theme is kind of a mix of frustration and anger. And it usually shows up as frustration and impatience. And the impact of these emotions is going to be found in the sacral center, and which is going to affect the liver and the gut. So common chronic symptoms associated with this are going to be hormonal imbalances, gut issues, blood sugar imbalances, adrenal and thyroid issues, anxiety, inflammation. And so I see this show up mostly, I'm going to say that a little bit differently. It's going to show up the sacral center. The sacral center is associated with reproductive organs and the lower part of the GI tract. It's also going to affect the liver because anger, as I mentioned, the first 2 parts of this, anger is an emotion, according to traditional Chinese medicine, anger is an emotion that lives in the liver. And so it's kind of the combination of these. So it's kind of this combination of things that is going to be affecting what's happening in the liver, the functionality of the liver, lower GI tract, and the reproductive organs, right? So that's why hormonal imbalances, blood sugar imbalances, thyroid issues, like all of these things are related to how the adrenals are functioning, how the reproductive organs are functioning, and the liver, right? So Manny Gens often get impatient because they feel like they should be further ahead. Since their path isn't linear, this leads to a lot of frustration. They constantly feel like they need to be doing more, they should be further ahead than they are, and this leads them to put a lot of pressure on themselves to do more, move faster, do more, do better. And if they're not really checking in with their sacral, because they are sacral beings, if they're not checking with their sacral and following their authority, this is going to lead to a lot of burnout. And this is going to hit your adrenals and your thyroid really hard. And this, I mean, it's just kind of this cascade effect from there, and as well as just overall inflammation in the body. And typically when you have issues going on with the adrenals and you have a lot of issues with like cortisol dysregulation, cortisol imbalances, cortisol is a catabolic hormone. It breaks things down. And so you are going to feel inflammation in the body. A lot of times there's joint pain, muscle pain, just sometimes feeling achy. Sometimes it can show up as not being able to recover well after workouts. These things are super common. The same thing with gut issues. You've heard the term like a nervous gut before. This is kind of how it shows up, this constant like feeling of needing to do more, go faster, do more. It's a lot of pressure on the adrenals. It's a lot of pressure on the gut. It's kind of this constant underlying feeling of just anxiety in the body, right? So when we're looking at mineral balancing for many gens, like I said, it's going to be similar to a lot of the ones we talked about for Generator. But if we're speaking about just these things that I've mentioned here, right? So let's adrenals first. Adrenals are going to take a huge hit, many gens. Burnout is a real thing. And especially, as I mentioned with generators, because both of these types are very energetic beings or sacral beings, they have a lot of energy. A lot of times they can get into this pattern of doing because they can, not because they should, right? Because they have the energy doesn't mean you should be doing it, because it's not necessarily something that's aligned for you. It's not necessarily something that is exciting for you, is going to light you up. So this burnout thing is really common for gens and many gens. So we're talking about adrenals. Magnesium and sodium, as I've mentioned before, are going to be the two main minerals here that are going to support the adrenals. So getting those through food, through supplementation. Magnesium, as I mentioned, we want to be mindful of the type that we're getting. So we're looking for glycinate, bisglycinate. Those are the two that are going to be most easily absorbed by the body. They're not going to be serving as laxative. And you want to look for getting about 5 times your body weight, because you're only going to absorb about 60% of what you're supplementing. We're going to aim to get about 5 times your body weight. Sodium, we're looking for good quality unrefined sea salt, like Celtic sea salt, Redmond salt. Those are always the two things I recommend. Those are going to be the biggest support for your adrenals. Now, looking at the gut, blood sugar imbalances. Let's go blood sugar first. Magnesium is going to be really across the board. Magnesium is one of those minerals that we need for everything, and I talk about minerals all day, every day, or magnesium. But magnesium is going to be one of those that's also going to help with blood sugar imbalances. It's helping with blood sugar regulation. Magnesium and calcium work together with blood sugar regulation. Magnesium is also going to help with the gut. It helps with motility. It helps with specific enzymes that are created there. So magnesium is going to be important for both of these, all of it, like I said. And when we're looking at let's go about for thyroid next. So thyroid support, we're looking at selenium, iodine, potassium. Those are going to be really important minerals for your thyroid, supporting the thyroid. All of these are needed either to make the thyroid hormones, to get the thyroid hormones in your cells. Every cell in your body has receptors for your thyroid. So we need all of those. Potassium is one that I've talked about a few times now, but it's one that, yes, you can supplement it. And if you have thyroid issues, if you already know you have a slow functioning thyroid, you have something like hypothyroidism or thyroid disease, then you do want to supplement in addition to getting it from food. If we're getting it from food, the most concentrated sources are going to be in things like avocados, bananas, coconut water. Those are really great sources of potassium. But the RDA is like 4,800 milligrams of potassium, which is a lot. It's really hard to get from food, and it's also really hard to get just from supplements. We want to do it together and make sure that we're putting the whole equation together, not just relying on supplements, because there's kind of a threshold. At some point, your body just isn't going to absorb any more potassium from a supplement. So you want to get it from food as well. Selenium and iodine are two other minerals that are really important for the thyroid. So we want to hone in on those pieces. Now, when we're talking about things like inflammation, hormonal imbalances, somewhat of the anxiety, although that's kind of a multi-layered thing, but specifically, let's say hormonal imbalances and inflammation. The first place I'm going to look for both of these things is the liver. So when I say hormonal imbalances, I know that's very broad and somewhat vague, but we're looking at hormonal imbalances. This is also kind of this multifaceted piece, because we're talking about sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but we're also talking about steroid hormones, right? Like cortisol. We're talking about like insulin is also a hormone. So when we're talking about hormonal imbalances, this kind of covers
the gamut here. And the first place we're going to look, we're not going to look at how do we balance estrogen, how do we balance progesterone. We're going to look at the liver. How is the liver functioning? And as I mentioned in the beginning, anger, which is kind of on this same spectrum, on the same wavelength as, or frustration is on the same wavelength as anger. This is an emotion that's driven from the liver, right? So this is the first place we're going to start. This is the number one place we're going to find why the hormonal imbalances are going on. So when we're looking at specifically mineral balancing for hormones, again, there's multiple layers. When I was in was that Monday when I did the generator training on mineral balancing for generators, I broke down B vitamins as well. And I know this isn't a training on vitamins, we're specifically talking about minerals, but the vitamins and the minerals typically work together, and a lot of the minerals are cofactors for the vitamins. And that's true with a lot of the B vitamins. Your liver needs a lot of B vitamins to help with all of the detox processes that are going on. And that's going to help break down hormones, get rid of the hormones, help with cellular waste, right? There's so much your liver is responsible for. It helps with methylation, like converting hormones. So B vitamins and the cofactors to those are going to be really important. So magnesium, which I've mentioned like 5 times now, magnesium is a big one for that, which is why I say we want to focus on supplementing with the right amount and the right form to make sure we're really getting the magnesium that we need. In addition to that, things like zinc, selenium, copper, iron, all of these are also really important for liver health, helping with liver detox, helping with liver function. So that's first and foremost where we're going to start when we're looking at hormonal imbalances. So I've done some trainings on this before. Like I did a training maybe a few weeks ago about why when there are hormonal imbalances going on, we never start with the hormones. It's never the first place to start. And I actually had a conversation the other day with someone in the DMs asking me about lab testing, and she wanted to do just the Dutch test. And I've had people ask me that all the time. Like they're very specific. I just want to get my hormones checked. I just want to see what's going on. And that's great. It's great to see what's going on with your hormones. That's fine and all. But this is really not telling you the whole picture, right? Our hormones are just chemical signals that are telling us what's going on in the body. So yes, your hormones are typically things that are like yelling at you when your body is in disarray, but they're not the actual problem, right? That's secondary. There's a deeper root cause at play. So getting your hormones tested with the doctor, with any practitioner, really isn't going to tell you a whole lot, which is why I work with so many women who have done blood test after blood test after blood test. It's like, oh, my labs look fine. The blood labs look fine, because that's not the problem, right? It's not the problem. Or their hormonal balances are going all blah, 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 and they get put on hormones, birth control, IUD, whatever. It doesn't fix the problem because it's not the problem. So I want to be clear on the hormonal imbalance piece. And I find that generators and Mani-Gens, the hormonal imbalance piece is so common. And it's because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, you are sacral beings and your sacral center is associated with your reproductive organs. So if we're constantly out of alignment with this particular center, then of course it's going to show up as hormonal issues, right? It's issues going on with how your sex hormones are functioning. So I want to leave you with that and just understanding that when your hormones are going haywire, we need to get to the deeper issue at play. And a lot of times there's a liver situation we want to address, and that's part of it. May not be all of it, but that's part of it. There's gut issues to look at, right? There's gut function to look at. That's at play. But I think for my last little bit for Mani-Gens here is really prioritizing taking care of your adrenals, really understanding how to work with your energy to know like when you're doing something just because you can, just because you have the energy to do it, and not necessarily because it's what really excites you and what feels fun and, is lighting you up and is going to bring you that signature feeling of satisfaction, right? Supporting your energy, supporting your blood sugar regularly throughout the day, and really taking the time to tune into your sacral before taking action. That's going to be a really big piece of that. So the mineral balancing is great. I really think with all of the types, it's going to be a combination of honing in on the physical balancing piece, right, of the mineral balancing, but it's also like tuning into your strategy, your authority, all of those pieces to understand how I'm getting misaligned in the first place, right? And with Mani-Gens, it's like, am I tuning into my sacral? Like, am I really listening to strategy, authority, whatever that is. Well, it's responding is your strategy, but your authority, whether you're emotional or you're sacral, like tuning into those pieces and using that to guide you in making decisions, and rather than bypassing those parts and constantly meeting resistance, which your body is going to feel, right? The anxiety, the adrenal issues, the thyroid issues, the hormonal issues. So that is mineral balancing for many gens. So the last two types I have left to talk about are projectors and reflectors. So I'd love to see y'all, if you're watching the replay on this, let me know where many gens are in the house. And if you're a projector, reflector, no worries, I'm not going to forget about you. So I'll be back later for that. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.